More on the ever-growing spate of hack attacks. Our friend Richard Falkenrath is back. Richard is a contributing editor at Bloomberg. He's also a principal at the Chertoff Group, a consulting firm that specializes in security. Richard is the former New York Deputy Commissioner for Counterterrorism and a former White House Deputy Homeland Security Advisor. Richard, people should be encouraged, right? The government is doing something. Explain to us exactly what's going on behind the scenes.
Well, last week we learned that the Defense Department is working with internet service providers, so Comcast, Verizon, Time Warner, that are dealing with defense contractors to provide them classified signatures of cyber threats to allow them at the network level to screen against those threats, which is a pretty useful thing for the defense contractors. Not very useful for everyone else.
Okay, but specifically, is this a response? Do we understand that this is a response to Lockheed Martin getting hacked, or was this in progress beforehand?
This was in progress before, at least since 2007, 2008. This program has been underway. This is described as a pilot, but the Deputy Secretary of Defense was giving an important speech in Paris. It's useful when you write a speech to relate it to a current event, so they made it seem like it was related. But it's been underway for a long time.
Okay, clearly the United States government has a lot at stake with those private defense contractors like Lockheed Martin, but as you just pointed out a moment ago, this doesn't really do anything for anybody else. Are there any salutary knock-on benefits, though, that might accrue to some other private companies, either ones that have been hacked or perhaps ones that have not?
Well, not really. I mean, if the network monitoring is only occurring for the traffic going into the defense contractors, it doesn't benefit everyone else. And there's a couple takeaways from this for the non-defense contracting firms. One is the government knows things that you don't, which is very useful to defend certain companies, i.e. not yours. Second is the ISPs are a critical element of defense. So getting the network defenses deployed forward into the network is a lot better than having to do it once it hits your own network.
Okay, now let's talk about the ISPs. We're talking about Verizon, we're talking about Comcast, we're talking about AT&T, we're talking about any company that you or your company may buy internet service from. Is the government forcing them to do this? Do they have any options?
No, they're not forcing them to do it, not yet at least. That would be an enormous regulatory action, and it would be heavily contested by them. This is a voluntary program. The government has a lot of power, so when the government comes knocking with government services firms, they typically cooperate. But these companies really have complicated interests here. They have lots of people coming to them saying, hey, let's monitor the network, going to all your customers to watch out for lots of dangerous things, pornography, copyright violations, hate speech, cybersecurity threats. And for them, they're sort of saying, the ISPs, this is an unfunded mandate. This is pure cost for me. It's responsibility I don't want. It's sort of like when you fly. When you fly, you give your security responsibility to the airline. When you drive on the road, you're on your own, and you're in charge of your own security in your car and how well you use it. And so really, it's for the ISP, it's a question, are we going to be like airlines or the highway?
Well, how complicated? The airlines have to do things the way they do them, though, partly because that's a mandate set by the U.S. government. So are we getting to the point where this is becoming a policy issue, where the U.S. government may have to begin to legislate some of the approach that it's taking vis-a-vis defense contractors?
We are beginning to nibble at it. And so there's several bills in Congress right now that would change cybersecurity law. There's a proposal out of the Obama White House, and it has one idea that is relevant here, which is a requirement on the internet service providers to provide information to the government, which they currently don't have. That's sort of the thin edge of a wedge to what might be a broader regulatory mandate later on.
Well, a broader regulatory mandate inevitably involves costs. Richard, you raise a very good question. Who ultimately pays for internet security? We always thank Richard Falkenrath, our friend and contributing editor here at Bloomberg.